Greetings everyone, it's Dante Starshine. Welcome to this video in which we're going to explore the energy of this full moon that's happening tonight around 3 a.m. Pacific time, 6 a.m. Eastern time, and that would be like 12 p.m. tomorrow in Europe. So in Europe, something like this full moon is in the middle of the day, so you're experiencing the energy throughout the night tonight and tomorrow night and the whole day. And this is a potent moon in the sign of Aries in the tropical zodiac and in the sign of Pisces in the sidereal zodiac. I'm going to talk about the energy that is taking place at the time of the full moon, and then I'll look into the coming weeks. And we're going to look at both the tropical Western chart and the sidereal Vedic chart. So I hope you stay tuned and enjoy the video. Just a little mention before I begin that the month is almost over, and until the end of it, I am offering a discount on readings. It's just $88 for a complete chart reading, and afterwards it is going to be the price of $155. So if you want to take advantage of this offer that is available to my following online, you are most welcome to do so. So let's dive in. All right, so you can see the chart of the full moon here, and it is in the sign of Aries, and it is opposed to the sign of the sun in Libra. And here in Libra, we also have Pallas Athene, who is the goddess of logic, high intellect, strategy, and war. And also the depositor of the moon, Mars, who is the ruling planet of Aries, is in that sign of Libra. The influence of Pallas Athene can make this a very strategical sort of a full moon. It might activate our intellect in certain ways. Mars is the depositor of the moon in its sign of detriment, and the sun in the sign of its fall can also cause some sort of a feeling of weakness with this moon. Mars does not like to be in the sign of Libra, who is the sign of peace, and Mars as the planet of war. So when this combination comes up, there's an energy of sometimes fighting for peace, fighting for there to be justice and balance. Now, we also have a trine between the planets Pluto, Mercury, Uranus. And this trine has been active for a while. It gets reactivated as Mercury goes direct. Mercury is coming to come out of its shadow. And Uranus and Mercury in connection is like the higher mind and the lower mind uniting. It brings a burst of insight. And Pluto being the realm of the subconscious, this allows us to penetrate to the depths of our unconscious and see what might be lurking beneath the shadows. This could represent sudden insight into some things that we have been unconscious about before. And this allows us to make the unconscious conscious. But because it's Uranus, this can happen in a way that might be shocking. And Pluto is also in that square with Mars, and this can represent tension. This can represent a feeling of a power struggle, as Mars likes to fight, and Pluto is about power. So depending on where that falls in your chart, the power struggle might manifest. Because Pluto is well aspected by these other planets, there will be a sort of resolution that comes that is innovative as it connects with Uranus. Now, what else is happening at this time? A lot. Uranus and Venus are in a square too. And Venus is also conjunct that little asteroid called Juno. Juno representing the wife of Zeus. Juno is about commitments and marriage. And Venus is the planet that's associated most with relationships and love. And when things aspect Venus, it impacts our relationships and our sexuality and our desires and our pleasure in general. This is the third time that Venus is coming to square Uranus as it has gone retrograde recently, and it has passed the square point of 90-degree relationship to Uranus several times. And this brings surprises to relationships. It can bring shock to relationships, but it can also bring innovation. This might mean trying something new. This might mean unveiling desires that have been before hidden, where there's a specific sort of new desire to explore something in the context of relationships. It could mean some unconventional desire emerges in relationships, or an unconventional kind of love. And because Uranus is destabilizing, it can bring a sort of change in our relationships. We might take our relationships in new directions at this time. The North Node is with the planet Eris. Eris and the North Node are in a square relationship to Pluto, which the chart doesn't draw here, because Eris and the North Node are considered minor planets, but it's nonetheless important, and Eris is almost the same size as Pluto after all. It has a much longer orbit. It hasn't been used in astrology for as long, but if we're considering Pluto, we have to consider Eris, who is the goddess of discord and rebellion. And the North Node brings about a strong and intense desire. And Eris desires freedom and justice, and pursues that in a way that can be chaotic. So there can be a sudden urge and impetus for freedom and for breaking free, for chaos, for coming up against what is unfair or unjust and breaking that down. That happens when the North Node, who is so much about desire and sometimes an unquenchable thirst, comes into contact with Eris. And then those planets come up into that square relationship with Pluto, which they've been in for a while, coming stronger as Pluto's going retrograde. It's can make a stronger sense of, pushing back against the power. The power can be coming in even more harder than we might have thought. So, those are the biggest aspects in the Western chart. Overall summary is change in our relationships that can be positive and breaking free from limiting power structures. And yeah, there is that noticing still the kite formation with Neptune and Mercury. So that's bringing an imaginative, dreamy quality into this. It's Neptune is our dreams and our aspirations. Neptune creating that top of that trine is an important planet for how we can synergize these energies of transformation. And we integrate these spiritual realms into that very tangible and practical realm of Mercury in this way. So I'm going to move on to the sidereal Vedic chart. And we're flipping things around because it's hard to fit this into the whole view here. So this chart might not make as sense for those who have not read a Vedic chart before. Anyway, we can see that the ascendant starts from the top rather than, how do I go? Ascendant starts at the top rather than from that left center side. And anyway, in this chart we see that the moon is in the sign of Pisces. And in Vedic we have the lunar mansions or nakshatras. So the moon is in the sign of Uttarabhadra, who's connected with the serpent that lies at the bottom of the sea. This serpent, called Ahirbudhyana, is the serpent of the Kundalini. And this nakshatra is said to be one that is very drawn into the mystical and spiritual realms and the esoteric realms. It's a nakshatra that likes to be very much alone. So there can be a loner quality to this full moon. And this can be one that sends us into this inner searching for spiritual meaning, and that awakens our Kundalini, which is the force of our awakening and the force of our healing. The moon is aspected by Mars and the Sun, and the Mars aspect from the whole house perspective, again, when we see this in Vedic, it says that the Mars and Moon combination is one for really intense and powerful ambition and drive. It makes a fiery mind. So while the moon is in a very spiritual orientation, there's also a fire to the moon at this time. And it can activate our drive and our ambition to pursue something new. And this full moon can be a time that starts our deeper pursuits of something in that realm of our ambition, our career, our desire to expand. The depositor of the moon is Jupiter, as the moon is in Pisces, the 12th sign. And Jupiter is retrograde, and Jupiter is still under a heavy affliction through Saturn's third aspect, and Rahu, and Mars is 8th aspect. So with the depositor of the moon going under this heavy influence, the moon takes some of that energy on as well. And yeah, this afflicted Jupiter is making this a time where it's hard to trust our own wisdom, and there might be some misrepresentations of insight. We might be presented with false leaders, false teachers, when Jupiter is under such a heavy affliction, as Jupiter represents the guru, it represents the spiritual leader and lineage. And so there can be issues that come up with that teacher archetype at this time. We see a lot of planets retrograde, Saturn and Jupiter retrograde still. Well, Mercury and Venus are about to come out of their shadow. Venus is at that 29th degree. Rahu and Ketu, who move backwards, are at the second, the 1.5 degree really. And so the cusp between water and fire signs is known as Gandanta, and Gandanta is the spiritual karmic knot. And Gandanta is bringing a heavy karmic influence. And when planets are in Gandanta, they're said to be in a deep transition. The Gandanta can represent influences and energies that come from other lifetimes. The Gandanta can represent the end and beginning of things. And when planets are on the Gandanta, it's like the space in between. It's like things have yet to be decided. And as these are three pretty powerful planets, at the time of this full moon, there's a lot in transition. There's a lot up in the air. There's things that have not been fully decided yet that are coming to be revealed. And the decisions we're making at this time, and not even just the decisions, but the ways that we're holding our energy at this time, become really important, as if we step off our true spiritual path, those Gandantas can mean we're ending things that meant to continue, or we're beginning things that never should start, especially as Rahu and Ketu are these, Rahu especially is a planet of great material desire, and Ketu is the planet of our liberation. So, and Venus is the planet of our sensual desire as well, going through this Gandanta, coming out of shadow soon, in a couple of days, moving faster, but still in this deep transition. And Venus began its retrograde in the sidereal sign of Leo, and just after this Venus is going to move back into Leo. Venus will come out of Gandanta around the 5th of October, and that is when we can really see that we are beginning a new cycle, and the way that our relationships are progressing from that point, we can be more clear about, okay, what is happening and what isn't happening. And then Venus is going to be chilling in that sign of Leo, and Mercury, who's also coming out of shadow, is going to go into the sign of Virgo, where Mercury is exalted, and Mercury picks up dignity. And as Mercury is the planet of money, and Mercury then gains strength, and Virgo, sorry, my words, matters of money and business might have this temporary boost where they expand and they flourish for the month of October and a bit of November. Mercury in Libra isn't so bad as well. And then Mercury, by the time Mercury enters Scorpio, Mercury is going to come up into some trouble again, as there will be many intense influences in Scorpio at that time. Rahu Ketu have been on this axis for a while. Rahu is the sign of Ashwini Nakshatra, is in the sign of Ashwini Nakshatra, which is about healing, initiative, and has a very quick nature. So Rahu here can make it feel as if things are happening very fast. I know that it feels for me as if life is happening almost too fast at this time, though it is bringing a highlighted need in everyone for healing. So to honor that need and to dive into healing at this time is really important and beautiful thing to do. And so following that, Rahu will move into the sign of Pisces, and will be in the sign of Revati, which is a much more spiritual sign. Ashwini is spiritual in some ways. Ashwini is more about healing. But still, Rahu and Ketu are going to be in Gandanta till the end of the year. So this is a strong time of that sort of karmic undoing, karmic untying of the knot before we begin that new cycle. Rahu and Ketu won't come into that Gandanta point so often. It would be every 6 years we would see Rahu and Ketu in Gandanta, and so this is a big close and beginning of the cycle that isn't just these nodes changing signs, but it's the most important shift between signs, that shift between water and fire signs. And water and fire are elements that don't agree with each other, and so it is like a steam effect. It's like a sort of, dousing the flames, but smoldering the water. It's a very intense effect that can be in a somehow nullifying energies when things move through Gandanta. So it's natural at this time that we feel like certain cycles are closing while other doors are opening. And be aware of that, and maybe if you find yourself holding on to things that actually need to go, allow yourself to let go, allow yourself to accept when certain cycles have come to a conclusion, and that's just the way it is. And that will help you move through these times, which are astrologically intense. And once those planets begin moving direct again towards the end of the year and Rahu Ketu out of Gandanta, we're definitely going to see a very different year. And just to mention, as I've said in other videos, that sign of Aries is under a pretty heavy hit right now, and it's going to continue to be under a heavy hit up until yeah, November, halfway through November, we can see that um, that heavy influence from three malefic planets affecting that house is finally over. So whatever planets you have in Aries, know that they are undergoing some stress and will continue to undergo that stress. If it's the moon in Aries, it can be especially depressive and mentally unstable. Other planets can indicate different things, and of course, those planets will have their own meanings according to your own chart and will show up in your own life according to your chart, as will all of these influences. Though we speak to the general things in this reading, and if you want to see how this affects your own chart, then I would highly suggest you book a reading, and then you can see where these things are showing up and how you might be able to remedy them and do things that would support them manifesting in a more aligned and healed way. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to connect with you in a reading or in another way. Let me know what you think and if you have questions, and I wish you the most fantastic, beautiful, and blessed day. Much love, namaste, and yeah, everything.